Hello everyone and welcome to the Hybrid Zone video. What a lame snow day. Literally didn't start snowing until like 12 and it's still not snowing hard and it's like almost 2:30. Lame. Okay, so if you have been doing the homework, you should have all gotten... Whoa, lots of documents. You should have all gotten to this point of the document where it says stop here. And if we were in class, you would have worked on the first part of the questions as a group, and then we would have stopped and talked about this graphic here. So I'm actually now going to go to a PowerPoint, and the graphic is the same. But we're going to talk about this graphic and what a hybrid zone is. So I would write whatever I talk about on the paper. So, here we go. So, a hybrid zone is a region, okay, where two species that were once the same species but have separated into two meet and mate and usually produce some hybrids or offsprings of mixed ancestry. So here's an example. We have these two toads. One is a yellow-bellied toad here, and then one is a fire-bellied toad here. And they were once the same species that separated into two. Okay, and this is in Europe. And they have a region, okay, which is called the hybrid zone, where both of these frogs are present, okay, and they try to mate and produce hybrid offspring. Okay, so in hybrid zones, okay, there are two possible outcomes. Sometimes textbooks say three, but the AP exam is happy with two possible outcomes about what's going to happen, okay, to the two species of frogs in this hybrid zone. Okay, and remember, the hybrid zone is an area of land where two species meet, okay, that were once the same species but split into two, okay? And there are two possible outcomes, okay, about what could happen in a hybrid zone. So let's sort of look at this graphic and start from the beginning. So let's say in this here we have a population of I don't know, we'll say it's frogs, okay? And they're together in the area. And then somehow they get separated, okay, by land. Somehow their gene pools get separated, okay? So now, and they diverge or split into two different species. So this could be the toads with orange bellies, and this could be the toads with yellow bellies, and they've split into two different species, okay? And then, okay, here, they're going to come together in the hybrid zone, okay? And they're going to try to mate and produce hybrid offspring, okay? In the hybrid zone, there are two possibilities. The two species could stay could stay different species. So that really would be, in this graphic here, either reinforcement or stability, right? They're going to each stay a separate species, and that would mean they would be unable to mate and produce fertile, viable offspring. Or, the second outcome is that they could merge into one species in the hybrid zone. Okay, so the two outcomes are stay separate species, that means they can't produce viable, fertile offspring, or they could merge into one species in the hybrid zone. Okay, now, the question we need to answer now, and the last question, this is going to be a short video, is what determines, okay, whether they're going to merge into one species or stay two separate species. And the answer to that is the strength of the sympatric barriers. So if you remember, sympatric barriers were barriers that prevented mating, okay? Remember, these are not allopatric barriers because they're in the hybrid zone together. So what is an example of a sympatric barrier that could prevent them from merging into two species? Well, maybe over the course of their evolution, when they were separated by land, they developed different mating behaviors. And now the orange toad no longer recognizes the mating behavior of the yellow toad. That would prevent them from successfully mating. Another example, this is one of the strangest ones, is maybe while they were separated, they developed different reproductive organs. So that the reproductive organ of the frog can no longer penetrate or fertilize or get the sperm into the reproductive organ of the frog. Frogs actually reproduce externally. So that's a little bit unlikely. If the egg of a female frog gets fertilized outside of the female. But anyway, if it was not a frog, that could be the case. Another example is that over the course of their separation by land, okay, they could have developed different mating seasons. So now the yellow frog is fertile during the spring, and the orange frog is fertile during the summer. When they're separated by land, if the sympatric barriers get stronger due to evolutionary forces in the different areas, okay, if those sympatric barriers are strong, they're likely to stay the same different species. Like this, they're going to say each one won't be able to mate with each other and produce fertile, viable offspring. However, if the sympatric barriers aren't strong, okay, the species are likely to merge into one species. It's also important to note that in the hybrid zone, some of the barriers could also be the barriers that I talked about before, the behavioral, the temporal, those are prezygotic barriers. The barriers could also be postzygotic, where the two species of frog, they're able to mate, and the sperm is able to fertilize the egg, but the offspring that they produce aren't fertile, or they don't live. And that's due to over the course of their separation, their genes or their DNA or their chromosomes have become so different from each other that when they combine, they're unable to produce a healthy, viable offspring. So there could also be postzygotic barriers, which are also sympatric barriers, that prevent the two species from fusing and becoming one. All right. Hopefully there's school tomorrow. But have a good afternoon.